G'day, we're live. I'm Scotty North and welcome to my new live show. This is the news you need to know. So it's on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. and you know that because you're watching it right now. So thanks for tuning in. All right, so a little bit about why I want to do this show is that I've spent my last 20 years, pretty much trying to help people get the right information and make the right decisions. And I figured there's a whole bunch of hoo-ha in the media and let's cut through it each week and, bring you the topics that are the news you need to know, right? That's just the stuff that you need to pick the headlines out of and get to the real news. So let's take a look at a few things of the reasons why I wanted to do this. And let's have a look at this first slide. I tweeted this a little while ago. And here we are here. This is an example of a normal news article, right? In the headline of the news article, we have no recovery. Sydney suburbs where home prices are still falling. And that's pretty bad, right? And then they've got a Market Insights article there, which is a video you can watch, which says market rebound continues in June. So if that's not confusing, I don't know what is. In the one piece of data, you've got two different things there. And that's exactly the type of example that we see in every piece of media article that comes out. Take a look at this next one. This is something from overseas. We're not going to touch too far on this tonight. But this one is talking about how things change pretty quickly. So the first article on the left, which is from the same company as the second article, we've got India is discouraged to trade settlements in Chinese yuan. And then 4 months later, that the refiners are actually trading in yuan for payments for Russian oil. So that's how quickly things change. And you sort of think you read something, if you don't keep on top of it and you read deeply, then who knows what goes on. Take a look at this last thing I tweeted a few weeks ago, which was to do with the last rate rise that we saw in Australia. And I have the TV going in my office there, and I sort of capture these screenshots on, of course, Australia's most trusted channel, which is ABC News. And we've got 3 of the 4 big banks expect a 13th rate rise today. And then, of course, the RBA leaves the rates on decision. So thanks, RBA, for doing that. And all that says to me is that, 75% of Australia's banks are wrong 100% of the time. And on that banking note, there was a few things a little while ago, 2 weeks ago, and that's going to lead us straight into, I'm going to break this show up into 3 different sections, right? It's all about money, finance. Whoa. Did you feel the wind in here? I felt the wind. It's pretty breezy, that logos and stuff coming through the graphics there. We've got nothing but top-notch graphic design here at Scotty North Live. So money news. As I said, a few weeks ago, a viral TikTok video went around. And look, in my opinion, all TikTok videos are viral and probably should be treated with some sort of antibiotic. But other than that, have a look at this video and then I'll dig a bit further into it.
So I went to the bank, but I didn't have my physical card. I thought, that's fine. I'll just go to the teller. The teller proceeds to tell me they don't have cash in the bank anymore. You can only get it out through the ATM. But she said, don't worry, I'll set your card up so you can just tap it in place of your card. I said, okay, great. Anyway, she'd done her bit on the computer and she came with me to the teller to make sure everything was fine. And it just kept giving an error message. It wouldn't even let me get to the point to put my PIN in. When I tapped it, it just gave this error message. And she said, I'm really sorry, there's nothing we can do. I was like, what do you mean? I need to get my money out of my bank account? And she was like, yeah, really sorry, we don't carry cash here. She said, if you've got another bank you can transfer your money to, you can try it with them. Luckily for me, I am with another bank, so I transferred every single penny out of that account, closed the account while I was there, and went and got my money out at another bank. But it just got me thinking about our banking system and where we're at, and how the hell can you go to a bank and not access your own money?
All right. Well, I'm going to answer Taryn's question, I think it was there, is how do you go to a bank and not access your own money? Well, very easily if you don't take your card. So Taryn went to the branch and she didn't have her card and she couldn't access her money. But what it was is it was a branch that now prefers to use ATMs, and they didn't have the cash at the teller. And so they tried to set her up and do that sort of stuff on the teller with the ANZ banking app, etc., etc. It didn't work. But really, the issue with this wasn't that it was a cashless bank, it was a cardless customer. And in fact, this video went viral all round for all the wrong reasons. Now Australia's losing cash and we can't access our money and banks don't give us money. Well, they should be able to give us our own money if we go in there. Well, you know, they did. They transferred it to another bank, a completely different bank at a different branch, and she got her money out. I guess what I'm saying is that this isn't a thing about are we going cashless, are we not going cashless? It's to do with the hype, right? So the hype in there, there's things in here that people would look at that and they got on the bandwagon. In fact, the example is that I'd seen this video a couple of weeks ago, as you might have. And in fact, I don't have TikTok, so I don't save it. It was sent to me, and I think it was on Instagram. Except just I couldn't find it again. So today I got my team to go looking for this video, and there was like tens and tens and tens of videos up there now talking about Australia and cashless, and people commenting about this video and how that they agree that it should be able to get you cash. The fact is, she went to a branch without her card. Now, some branches do allow you to do that tap on the phone thing at the ATM and get money, but you can't do that with $3,500, right? It's never going to happen. So it's just a big thing out of nothing. So that's a pretty good example of the stuff that goes around, and you need to dig a bit deeper. At this point, Australia still has cash. I've got some, you've got some, your grandma's got some. It's still out there, right? You can still go to a bank. Plenty of businesses still deal in it, and it's happening. We're not at cashless Australia just yet. Wow, that was pretty action. All right, finance news. Now, I've got to bring up some articles here. Now, this is perhaps a little bit dry because while money is all about your money and budgeting and sort of accessing cash like we talked about before, this one is about finance, and finance is pretty boring, right? We all agree it's pretty boring. So let's have a look at what I got here on my screen. All right. Okay, except I'm not. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try that again. Technical gremlins on the first night. Okay, let's make that a full screen. Okay, that's good. All right, so I've got to give you some background before I talk about the next article. Now, this is the boring part, right? It's about finance, so I'm going to be as quick as I can. Back in 1920, the banking oversight of this country, which is APRA, decided to make some changes, and of course, they just do that about 3-4 years ahead. So they put out the desired changes that they wanted to make in 2023. And with that, they said, I want to do this, this, and this. And they sent it to the banks, of course, the stakeholders, they call it, for commentary. Now, the reason why this is important is because the banks sort of said, yes, yes, no, no, we like that, we don't like that, etc., etc. Part of the issue here is that there were some couple of big things that changed. The first one is right here. Now, I don't know if I can make this any bigger, so I'll have to read it out to you. So instead of, you know what lender's mortgage insurance is? If you don't have a full 20% deposit and you only got, say 10%, then the bank charges lender's mortgage insurance on the gap. It's insurance for themselves. The thing is that loan was always treated as a 10% deposit loan. So one of the things that have changed from 2023 is that lender's mortgage insurance is now recognised as a 20% benefit. So it reduces the capital needed for banks, right? It's not reducing your capital, it's reducing the capital needed for banks under their adequacy rules for their banking. And so that just means that's a win for banks. Now, why is that important? Because it means that they can loan more, right? So all these changes the banks wanted to do meant that they could loan more. this is the other big one that happened, in my opinion, was the interest-only lending. And so interest-only is where, well, you pay interest only, right? And it's usually for a period of 5 years. Traditionally, if you went to go past that and you got to the 5-year point you wanted to refinance, the banks would have to look at it in that you've already been interest only for 5 years. Now you want to do another 5, so that's interest only for 10 years. But that's not what's happened now. From January 2023, that has changed. It's changed in the sense that these loans now, as long as they are fully documented and there's a 20% deposit, they're now not called high-risk loans, whereas once they were before. The other thing that's changed is that they're not going to accumulate the time under the term, right, if you go and do a reserviceability test. So at the initial point, you're going to give your documents to the bank, you get an interest-only loan for 5 years, right, go for it. In 5 years' come, you want to refinance. If the bank asks you for documentation again, and they say, show us your wage slips, show us your P&Ls, all that sort of stuff, okay, you can get another interest-only loan. It's only assessed at a 5-year period. It's not assessed now at a 10-year. It doesn't aggregate, right? So it's just individual. So that's a big change, because what used to happen is because of that additional time frame, banks wouldn't usually do an interest-only loan under the rules. You'd have to go to principal and interest. So what does this actually mean in real terms? This is, sorry, it's heavy, I know. What it means is that now you can do interest-only loans indefinitely as long as you go for serviceability and it stacks up. Just means that you can borrow more money because you don't have to do principal and interest. So that's a pretty big deal. The other thing here that leads into, right, is this. So the present. Okay. There was a whole bunch of things that banks said they wanted changed, and they did so. The other thing that they did was that they went, well, we want these changed, and APRA said, no, we can't change things, okay? So the banks go, okay, that's fine, let's run with that. And simple fact is, now we have this. Westpac is saying it won't stick to home loan guidelines as interest rates surge. Essentially, Westpac is saying that, okay, APRA, we don't really care what happens. We need to get money out the door, right? And they want to get money out the door any way they can. And this is back in May. And it was said it will refinance loans for some borrowers who don't meet an industry standard, right? And they just, as long as they reckon that they're okay to pay. Now, do I care about this? I don't care what they do and don't do. What I care about is that you know what's going on, right? Because all this stuff has an impact on loan availability, your ability to go and get debt, and of course, corresponding property prices, which is where all this money ends up, okay? So that's what I want to talk about in finance tonight. The banks write their own rules, and in fact, they even influence the oversight, APRA in its decisions, because they all gave feedback and they had those things changed. That is there on their own documentation, and, well, you wouldn't have seen it because it's not necessarily printed out, and even if it was, it'd probably have... Okay. Whew. What can I say? It is what it is. All right, so where's our property news slides, team? If we can bring them up, that'd be great. Okay, I know where they are. They're talking to me in my ear, and I'm using a Mac here, and I don't use Macs, so I've got to bring up news. Okay. Okay, all right. Can we do this? Let's go. Share my screen, fellas. Okay. Why Australian real estate prices are powering on after yet another rate hike. Okay, so this is the sort of stuff that comes out in the media. Exactly the next day will come out why Sydney prices are crumbling, or how rental affordability means mum and dad investors are out of the market, all this sort of stuff, right? But so I just picked a couple of these because, honestly, you could spend a whole night on this sort of stuff. But what we wanted to look at here was these guys grab, data reports that come out. And CoreLogic's a good one. So CoreLogic's here. They put out a lot of reports. And I'm not saying their data's wrong. I'm saying they're good reports. But everyone interprets data a certain way. And whatever they want to do is how they sort of want to say it. So this article here just goes on to say that, it's pretty bad. It's this and that. And it's harder to build a new house and less new houses and all this sort of stuff. And then it ends with the final line of, it's a terrible dilemma for the Reserve Bank of Australia where more rate hikes feed the imbalance between supply and demand, right? So once again, the article's talking about they're powering on after another rate hike. And this is just a classic example of this sort of thing that's going on. How do I go back here? All right. Now, this is one that I wanted to go through with you with a calculator. 3 reasons why the housing market is slowing. Okay. So this guy writes a lot, James Kirby, for the Australian. And this here goes through the reasons why it's a double dip slowdown and blah, blah, blah. But I want to highlight a couple of things to you here. Over the year to date, Sydney prices had bounded ahead already by 5.9%. Okay, so 5.9%. This is like a half-yearly thing. Now, I waited a couple of weeks on this to make sure that there was nothing wrong on this article. I didn't want to make sure I gave you wrong info. But it says here that it lifted only 0.3% over the last week. Now, I'm assuming they mean the last month, right? But as I said, I waited a couple of weeks on this article to make sure that that they didn't do fix it up. So, of course, that piqued my interest because the market's crashing and the property price had gone up 0.3% in a week. Now, if that's the case, right, let's do 0.3% times 52, right? So that's 15.6% per annum. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that that's what's written in the article. In the same article that says that 3 reasons why the housing market is slowing, and that the first half of the year went through 5.9%, but the last week would indicate that overall we're looking at 15.6% for the year. Well, that's just a whole load of hogwash because that's a pretty large number, right? So I don't know what's right. Are they saying it's weekly? Are they saying it's monthly? Who knows? But even if they say it's monthly, that's 3.6% per annum. So you divide it by the second half of the year, it's 1.8. And we've got 5.9. So property this year in Sydney, according to this report, if I assume that they're wrong and it's not a weekly figure they've got in there and it is a monthly figure, according to the report is saying 7.7% per annum. Now, I'm not so sure that that's a housing market slowing or a crash or whatever headline they want to put on there. I think that that is, reasonably strong, right? So there we go. That's the sort of stuff. So you can read the headlines and think you get your news, but you've got to dig a little bit deeper and start asking the questions because half the time I don't think these guys know what they're printing. Okay. All right. So we've got a final section here of... Okay. Right. There you go. Shh. The news you don't want to know. Well, let's have a look here. So this is just the stuff I'm going to throw at the end of each show on something that you don't really want to know. And on this one is this article here. Okay. All right. Bring me up, fellas. Okay. So if you think that when your kids ask you for $20 or that they owe you some board, you got some problems, let me tell you, you got nothing. Someone says, Dad, I need $20 to go to the movies. Well, actually, you probably need $30 to go to the movies nowadays because $20 would have done it last year, right? So you've got to go to $30 to go to the movies. Oh, have you done your chores? Oh, yeah. Oh, but then you haven't. Oh, I'll give you, I owe you, whatever, right? We all have these squabbles within family, but we don't have squabbles like this family. So here we go here. So they're talking about billions of dollars for Gina Reinhardt and her family. And they're wanting, if they've got a feud, they don't just want a few $1 billion, right? So if you think you got it bad, Gina's kids are asking for a few $1 billion. They also want 1.25% royalty of everything out of that mining operation there. Now, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just trying to say, if you think you got it bad, right, and your kids haven't paid you back for that movies, or they haven't done their chores, or they haven't paid board, well, you ain't got nothing, because poor Gina Reinhardt is going to have to pay out many billions of dollars to her kids. How is she going to afford it out of her $36 billion empire? I'm not sure. And this is what happens. I really feel sorry for these poor people when us battlers in the trenches of life, we've got it easy compared to Gina. Our kids aren't asking for $3 billion. So, we've got a GoFundMe at the end of the thing. We can put the link in, and that can go to help Gina pay for her kids, because that's important. All right. Well, that's it for me for this show. If you've got any comments, please put them below. I'm sure you have. Oh, hang on. We do have some comments. What have we got there? Okay. People are saying hello, and people are saying all sorts of things in code, which we're not going to bother with because we don't talk in code. This is real talk, and that's the whole point of doing this show. I'm trying to break things down for you, and that you can take these wacky headlines or wacky terminology, and I'll bring it out into some real information that you can possibly use every week. All right, well, that's been the news you need to know.